Hi there all, welcome on into VG Emporium, video game music and more. I'm your host Rage Cage, and today I got for you more of our in-house specialty. That's right, more shop themes, and this is actually the 9th episode of them. So of course that means we're almost to 10, and I actually have something kind of neat planned for that one. But now let's get into this. And we opened up with, of all things, Shop from Langrisser 2, composed by Isao Mizuguchi. And this, of course, is the Sega Mega Drive version. There is also a Super Famicom version, a PlayStation and Saturn version, which is a compilation of Langrisser 1 and 2, and then, of all things, a PCFX version. And a funny little thing about the Super Famicom and PCFX version is that they were released under the title Der Langrisser. Very silly. So, Langrisser 2 is a tactical RPG. Originally released on the Mega Drive, it was the first tactical RPG to actually give you a choice of which story route you want to go with. The good Descendants of Light, the gray area that is the Rayguard Empire, or the evil Demon Tribe. And these, of course, have opposition to one of the other forces or not. But there is also a choice to do a fourth force, which is in opposition to all three of them. What, maybe call it the Chaos Gremlin group or something like that? Well, whichever way you decide to go, you're always going to need some new gear. And where are you going to get that? Usually at the shop. And hey, even if the prices don't end up being that great, at least the theme for the place is fun and energetic, and it'll definitely keep you coming back. And that is thanks to our composer, Isao Mizuguchi. And this fella has quite a bit under his belt, starting with the founding of 2.5, which is a music and audio production company, which he co-founded alongside Noriyuki Iwadare and Kenichi Okuma. And this was in 1991, and Isao served as president up until 2019. And now getting into his music and sound credits, to note, a majority of these were done alongside Iwadare and Okuma as well, either jointly composing music or filling different sound and production roles. So starting in 1989, there's Operation Wolf, followed by Langrisser, also known as War Song. And then, I'm going to be jumping about here. We got Toki in 91, Gleylancer 92, Sylphid in 93, and this is for the Sega CD version. Wrote lyrics for quite a few songs for Tanjo debut on TurboGrafx CD. And then a big one here was the music director for Lunar Eternal Blue, the Sega CD version. And then another big one for entirely different reasons. We have Ai Choaniki in 1995 as sound producer, and would do the same for the next 3 Choaniki titles. Now jumping a bit ahead, we have Langrisser 4 on Sega Saturn, music production on Grandia, Langrisser 5, The End of Legend, True Love Story 1, 2, and 3, Mermaid no Kisetsu, Wind, A Breath of Heart, Kimi Kiss, Amagami, and then his latest credit, 2017, is Akiba's Beat for lyrics and battle song sound producer. And trust me, there's a lot more there that I did not mention, but we're going to get into our next track here. This is November Equipment Shop BGM from Sledge Blow, composed by Takayuki Aihara. And this here is the kind of stuff I like to hear for a shop theme. This was November Equipment Shop BGM from Sledge Blow, composed by Takayuki Aihara. And I can confidently say that this fits within that weird narrow band of sound I am looking for in my shop themes, which is part of the reason as to my delay for not having more shop theme episodes already. Because I was trying to hold out for tracks that fit within this very specific, I can't quite explain sound, and then I finally decided to lighten up and, just start going for it. Thus why we are just at Shop Themes 9 instead of 20. So all that to say that, yeah, this is really good, and it's no wonder because Takayuki Aihara is part of that group that started at Namco that would eventually move to Arika and just make banger after banger after banger. And this, of course, being which this group, of course, included Shinji Hosoi and Ayako Saso, which, remember that name because that one's going to be coming back up at some point. So if you're familiar with the music from Ridge Racer or the Street Fighter EX series, you know why this is so good. So getting into Takayuki's credits here, starting with his time at Namco, we have Tank Force in 1991, Knuckleheads, Point Blank, Rave Racer, Tekken, Dirt Dash, Ridge Racer Revolution, arrangements on Tekken 2, and then his last major project at Namco being the Soul Blade Soul Edge soundtrack. And then getting into his time at Arika, there's Bushido Blade, the Street Fighter EX series, Fighting Lair, Paka Paka Passion as Sun J99 Mix. Jumping ahead, there's Dragon Guards 1 and 2, Children of Mana, Super Dragon Ball Z, Ridge Racers 1 and 2 on the PSP, Shutanto Evolutionary Mayhem, Power Punch, Pitapat Beat, Battle Garega Rev 2016, and then their latest credit in 2023 being Archetype Arcadia. And then a cool thing to note here is that he actually contributed a track to FM Vertex 3, which, there it is again. Maybe I just need to finally get my ass in gear and start working on that FM Vertex Focus episodes. Worries for another day. Now, I wish I could tell you about this game, but I couldn't find any information on it other than the soundtrack. Majority of search results come up for sledgehammers or other sledge-related things. And so we're going to move into the next track, this being Immortally Shop Rag from Majin Tensei, composed by Hidehito Aoki. and that was Immortally Shop Rag from Majin Tensei, composed by Hidehito Aoki. And as you can imagine by, the name Tensei, and then just the way how this music sounds, this is related to the Shin Megami Tensei series, and it has many similarities to that main series. You got a Tokyo that's been ravaged by a demon invasion. You can recruit said demons digitally to fight alongside you, but instead of being a dungeon crawler or exploration RPG, it is a strategy RPG. Kind of in a similar vein as a Fire Emblem, I guess, where you control your characters on a grid-based map, and then you go and encounter your enemies and fight them in, a single screen, or in, later iterations, it shows your character and the demon. But also on these maps, you can encounter demons that are non-hostile and, either conversate with them and recruit them or get things from them, or one in particular, Rag, that owns a shop where he not only deals in equipment, but also demons, though the strength of the demons depends on how many gemstones you got, because, this guy's a bit of a greedster, huh? And this theme is kind of fitting for that vibe. It's kind of low, grungy, a little funky, kind of has that flute in there, which makes it sound almost kind of Amiga-ish. And as for the shopkeep himself, Rag is a ghoulish-looking fella. He's pale, no hair, pointy ears, where his eyes should be are just empty sockets. And this isn't his only rodeo. He's shown up in a few other Megami Tensei games, mostly the earlier ones like Megami Tensei 1 and 2, Shin Megami Tensei If, Last Bible 3, as well as a few other titles, and in some of those it's known as Rag's Jewelry Shop. So no matter which version of the world ending you're in, Rag will be there to, take your coin and your gems if you got them. So this brings us to our composer, Hidehito Aoki, who had originally started at Atlus to be an artist, but then somehow got roped into doing music and sounds, his first credit being Amazing Tater in 1991, and then Quiz Moru Goto The World, Summer Assault, Wacky Races on the NES, Jantai Monogatari 2, Uchu Tantai Divan, Shutsudohen. And that's a fun one to say. And just as fun, Quiz Moru Goto The World 2, Time Machine ni Onigai. Both of these in 92 on the TurboGrafx. And then here's one I know, Power Instinct in 1994 on the SNES. And then we have both Majin Tensei 1 and 2. And then the big one here, which most people are probably more familiar with him from, is Persona in 1996. Then Devil Summoner, Soul Hackers, Cartia The World of Fate, Advan Racing, Devil Summoner Soul Hackers, Extermination, Wild Arms 3, Gran Turismo Concept 2002 Tokyo Geneva, and then his last work is Hungry Ghost, and that is due to his tragic death in 2002. But his last credit in 2009 is for the PSP release of Persona. So now we're going to get into something that'll help, lift spirits up a little bit, has definitely a different tone from this track. The next song is called Overground, Hoofman Shop Layer from Shovel Knight Dig, composed by Jake Virt Kaufman. was Overground, Hoofman's shop layer from Shovel Knight Dig, composed by Jake Kaufman, aka Virt. And I bet you didn't have PC98 dub on your bingo card now, did you? But if you're familiar with Jake Kaufman's work, then, this comes as no surprise. Because yes, the majority of his music is very bombastic and energetic. He is known to slow it down and do some dubbing from time to time. And then as for the PC98 bit, well, this music was made using the YM2608, which that should sound familiar because the last episode about Read Only Memories Neurodriver soundtrack was made entirely with that sound chip, and it's the same for Shovel Knight Dig. And so as I mentioned in the last episode, the YM2608, also known as the OPNA, was the sound chip found in the NEC PC98 series of home computers. And having listened to the majority of the soundtrack, I could definitely say Jake took advantage of all the channels on this sound chip. So you got the 3FM, the 3SSG, the 5 preset PCM percussion channels, as well as the 80 PCM channel. And it's some insane work. So now I'll mention here that during the first Masters of EGM event 2 years ago, Jake Kaufman was one of my picks, and I had covered a pretty good majority of what he had done up to that point. So instead of repeating what I said there, just go check out episode 22, Masters of EGM. And not much has changed since those 2 years. Like, I imagine he was still kind of working on Mina the Hollower, which is actually supposed to come out sometime this year, I guess. And so now this shop, it says Overground, and that's because it is located in the Overground area, located next to the entrance of what's called the Well, which is where majority of the gameplay takes place. And the proprietor of this shop, taking advantage of all the adventurers coming to the well for treasure, is the portly horseman Hoofman. And this fellow is very ridiculous looking, wearing very puffy, lavish purple clothing and a hat with a feather in it. And he's just, the pictures I've seen of him is just like his teeth showing, all kind of like in a permanent smile or Fleming thing or something, just laughing. I haven't played the game, and I haven't seen much of his dialogue to be able to tell if, he has the same personality as Percy, who was the horseman in the previous Shovel Knight game, who is very self-absorbed, but nonetheless, he is there to sell you all kinds of wares, probably mostly base stuff like healing items and enhancements and such, seeing, he is one of the earlier shops, because you'll find more shops as you dig. But most importantly, he does stock things that will increase your item capacity, which is very important for, collecting keys and relic keys and eggs, I guess. Again, I gotta play this one to know really how it all works. Okay, so now getting into our last shop theme, we've kind of come full circle here because, as we started with Isao Mizuguchi, we're going to end with one of their regular collaborators. So this is Shopping from True Love Story 3, composed by Noriyuki Iwadare. And that was Shopping from True Love Story 3, composed by Noriyuki Iwadare. And so now I know this isn't necessarily a shop theme, it's always good to have just a general theme for shopping, which is something that tends to happen a lot in dating sims, which, as you could probably tell by the title of this game, is one of those. And there's not much more to say about it other than, I guess there's a particular system, which is called the walk home system, where you're a girl of choice that you want to date. You ask her if you can walk her home, which then opens up the opportunity for all these different conversation options, and there's some strategy involved because there's a heartthrob meter, so depending on what you talk about or how you answer questions or they answer questions or something, it kind of causes their heart to throb and, feelings, or, however dating sims work, it does that. But that aside, I gotta say, this is a really nice tune. It definitely sounds like something that would be on the PS1, though this is a PS2 game. And it would also fit within that category of what my buddy Wei would call a cute sound. And the one responsible for this very cute sound is Noriyuki Iwadare, who was one of the main members of 2-5 music production company that Isao had founded, who has been featured on this show a couple times already. One of these being episode 44, Giganto Mecha. That's a fun one. So he had worked on a good majority of the titles I had mentioned while talking about Isao Mizuguchi, but some of his more notable works are arrangements for Afterburner 2 on the Sega Genesis, Parasol Stars, the story of Bubble Bobble 3 on the TurboGrafx, Ranger X, Crusader of Senti, Lunar Silver Star Story Complete, and Lunar Eternal Blue. Grandia's 1, 2, and 3. Worked on some of the Ace Attorney games like Trials and Tribulations and Dual Destinies, as well as Ace Attorney Investigations Miles Edgeworth, Kid Icarus Uprising, and has contributed arrangements to Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and Nintendo 3DS, as well as Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Man, who hasn't contributed to Super Smash Bros. By now? That is a question to be answered another time. Most likely it's by somebody else, because here we are at the end of the episode. So thank you again for coming into VG Emporium, video game music and more. I've been your host, Rage Cage, and you can find VG Emporium on all your favorite podcatchers such as Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, and YouTube Music. And there's also Terra Player and the main website, vgemporium.wordpress.com. And if you'd like to interact with VG Emporium, there is all the social media such as Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. There's also the email, vgemporium@gmail.com. And then there's also a Discord, which you'll find in the show notes, and you can leave feedback, suggestions, and special orders, which are song requests. So now another reminder here that next month, which is just coming in a couple days, June, is going to be Masters of VGM, which again is the event where a bunch of VGM podcasts are going to be picking their favorite VGM composers. In this case, this year is going to be female and those in the LGBTQ community. And they're all going to be released, in their own time within the month of June. And there's going to be a central website, mastersofvgm.com, where you can find all these episodes as they come out. So with that in mind, next week is definitely not going to be my Masters of VGM episode. Most likely it's going to be a grab bag to kind of give myself a little bit more cushion to work on that episode. So something cool to look forward to.